Okay, I did prepare a little bit last night. So I want to say, we said that already, but great to see you all. And thank you for staying on top of immigration changes and for taking time to attend this meeting. Your patience is really appreciated during this fluid time. And I'm so glad what happened last week, you know, the shock, the confusion, the terror has already, regarding the SEVIS guidance, already gone with the wind. So we are able to resume back to the previous and more flexible SEVIS guidance that's issued in March, which permits F1 students to participate in online or other alternative learning procedures and remain active in SEVIS at the same time, since Fresno State is operating primary online. So we cited this original SEVIS guidance verbiage in the slide for your reference. So you can go back to see where the original authentic law language is. Okay, so
next slide.
Yeah, so we're so if we're still on the slide, but yeah, so if the March SEVIS guidance continues to guide us through fall 2020, which looks like the case as of today, okay, it may or may not change, but if the guidance continues, we will be describing a few scenarios that may apply to your situation. Okay, we can go to the next slide, Dr. Lam. Okay, thank you. So I will primarily talk about two groups of students. First group is that you continued your enrollment throughout this whole time. So with this group, there's potentially 4 scenarios that apply to general population. You know, you might have individual cases. If it's very specific, we can we'll always be very happy to have one-on-one meeting to discuss the detail, but this applies to the general situation. So I'm gonna go through the scenarios really slowly, so you can think through and raise questions if you have later in this Q&A session. And so we did put the details in the slide. I know it looks like a lot of text. The purpose is this presentation will be sent to you through email. So you have a record to refer back to, you know, to get more confirmation. The keywords, you know, you can see a lot of repetition, but so I highlighted the keywords for easier reading later. And there's also links on the SEVIS guidance and travel ban. You can also click on when you receive the PowerPoint. Okay, so the 4 scenarios below. Our first scenario, if you have been enrolling this whole time, full-time, inside of the US, which is most, well, at least half students, and you're planning to continue enrollment for fall 2020, full-time, inside of the US. So the keyword here is you've been in the US the whole time, inside of US the whole time. You are going to continue. So for this group of students, you may continue to enroll full-time and maintain your active F1 status inside of the US. So I think that applies to at least majority students have. Okay, so scenario B, you know, some of you may have left the US in March, you know, or in May, and then you continue the enrollment. You finish the enrollment in spring 2020, and you're planning to continue for fall 2020 outside of the US. This scenario is definitely doable. You may still continue to enroll full-time classes and maintain your active status outside of the US. Again, the keyword is outside of the US and full-time classes. So, yeah, definitely highlighted full-time. Okay, the scenario C is you have been enrolling full-time inside of the US, so you finished spring 2020, and in summer you left, you returned to your home country, and you are planning to continue enrollment for fall 2020 full-time outside of the US. This scenario, you may also continue to enroll full-time and maintain your active F1 status outside of the US. The last, but maybe not last, given your individual situation. If it's beyond these 4 categories, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be so happy to talk to you. So the scenario D is you have been enrolling full-time classes, and you are outside of the US at this moment, and you are planning to return to the US to continue the full-time enrollment in 2020 fall. So in this case, you may return to the US to enroll full-time classes and maintain active status if now there's this another, a second factor comes in is the travel ban. If the travel ban permits your country or your scenario to return. And I attached the travel ban link so you can click on for the most up-to-date travel ban information. So these are the continuation enrollment. We're gonna talk about discontinued enrollment in the next slide. So we can move to, okay, yeah. So there's 3 general situations. The first generation, the first scenario. If you have been enrolling in the US last semester, spring 2020, and you decided to, and it's not working, I'm going back home, I'm going back to home country, you decide to discontinue the enrollment in fall 2020. This is definitely an option, it's doable, but you have to leave the US before the semester starts, which is on August 19th, to prevent unlawful presence and best protect your future immigration benefits. Scenario B, if you have been enrolling full-time classes outside of the US and you're planning to discontinue the enrollment for fall 2020, some students may want to take a break and to go away with the online instruction because of time zone and all that. So this is also an option, you can do that. And so what will happen is your I-20 will be terminated with a good reason. I-20 termination is usually not good, but for this one, you'll be terminated with a good reason. It's called authorized early withdrawal. And at the time when you plan to come back to the US, you just need to reach out to your individual international student advisor. So we will reissue you a brand new I-20. This will involve another $350 fee paid to the government. But you know, that's it. So you reach out to the international student advisor 2 months before the semester that you decide, 2 months before the semester that you decide to return to the US. One thing, if you're thinking about OPT, CPT, is to remind you that if you have this new I-20 number, the accruement of 1 year full-time enrollment will need to restart. So with this newly issued I-20, you will wait for 2 semesters of full-time enrollment inside of the US before you can regain the eligibility to have CPT and OPT. And also a reminder is if the disenrollment, like if you haven't enrolled for any classes at all with Fresno State for 2 semesters, so more than 1 semester, if you haven't enrolled for 2 semesters, you will need to reapply for admission to go back to Fresno State. This is a reminder. So in this scenario, maybe even if you just enroll for 1 classes per semester, maybe your I-20 is terminated, but your status with Fresno State is still maintained. Then you don't have to reapply a readmission. You may only need a brand new I-20 to come back to the US. Scenario C, third scenario. Okay, so you have not been enrolling full-time classes outside of the US, and you're planning to continue enrollment for fall 2020. In this scenario, you may resume to enroll for classes. Note here that you can enroll for full-time and part-time. This is the only time I mentioned part-time, because the rest of the scenarios you need to enroll for full-time. The reason of part-time, you may enroll for part-time in this scenario is so you can maintain your Fresno State status, although you're not obligated to maintain your SEVIS record, because last semester, if you have been out of the US, your I-20 would have been, out of the US without enrollment. Okay, I want to clarify that. If last semester you've been out of the US without enrollment, then your I-20 would have been terminated. So this is why you can feel free to enroll for part-time in fall 2020, because your I-20 will resume after you return back to Fresno State, back to the US, to take the in-person classes. So same thing, when you decide to return to the US, you may reach out to your international student advisor for a brand new I-20 with another 350 payments. You reach out to us 2 months before you decide to return. And also be aware, same applies, that there's 1 year accruement of OPT, of full-time enrollment for your OPT and CPT to restart. Okay, so that's about the enrollment. And I know that there's also a major group of questions regarding the employment. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the CPT and OPT, the impact of the SEVIS guidance on CPT, OPT. So we can move to the next slide. Okay. In general, the CPT, OPT requirement and application process remains the same. You still mail out your OPT application to USCIS. The only difference is you will email your CPT, OPT application to your international advisors, and we will email you back the processed I-20. So that's the only thing different. But the rest, the timing and the way to ship your documentation of OPT remains the same. And so, and also the requirement of 1 year full-time enrollment under same SEVIS ID number for OPT, CPT remains the same as well. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, it's very nice that even during this difficult time, USCIS has been able to process the OPT just as before. So we're talking about 3 months on average. I've seen even faster. During COVID-19, there's like 2 months processing time, and some a little bit longer, but it's still within the range of 3 months on average. And if you're thinking about, if you're planning to apply for CPT or OPT, the workshop attendance is required prior to the application. And right now, because we converted to the online operation, the online version of workshop is available through the path below. It will be on Canvas. It should be easy to find. It's under International Office, and you choose employment, and you will get to the workshop. and you may complete the quiz. There'll be a quiz, so it help you refresh the memory, and you can take a screenshot of the quiz result as a proof of your completion. And also I cited directly from a SEVP FAQ, and I want to share with you. I think this is something that students really are interested in, confirm. Okay, so again, F1 students, you may accrue eligibility for OPT or CPT, whether you're inside or outside of the US during the COVID-19 emergency, if you are in active status in SEVIS. So with that being said, that's just to confirm that as long as you enroll full-time, whether you're inside of or outside of the US, you can still maintain an active SEVIS record. With that active SEVIS record, your full-time enrollment will be counted towards that 1 year. So that's a good, friendly assurance. And also the next point I want to bring up is we know that 20 hours per week for OPT time, 20 hours and more, is the minimum requirement to maintain OPT in the pre-COVID-19 time. But during the COVID-19, this rule has been relaxed. So even if you could not find a 20 hours job, like a 20 hours per week job, fewer than 20 hours a week will also be enough to keep you in your active OPT status. So these are the like confirmation we want to give you. Pretty much after July 6th, the last week event, the guidance fall back to the guidance that guided us in spring 2020. So we will also send both the SEVP guidance along with the most up-to-date SEVP FAQ. So you have your first-hand resource with you to go through some of the most frequently asked questions. And that's the content I'm going to cover for today. The rest, we leave it up to the time for you to raise your questions. And yeah, and so you're very welcome to, as I always like to say, your questions are very welcomed and needed. You might be asking something that other students are very curious too. It just, if it's come to a very specific scenario, we would love to discuss more in depth one-on-one with you, if it's very individualized specific question. Okay, so we're taking in the question right now.